Hey, I apologize this has taken so long. I haven't really had a ton of time. So I'm just going to knock this out real quick and not bother scripting anything and hopefully do a nicer video later on different or on related things. But anyway, for people who want to actually fly this particular ornithopter, it's probably the most complicated one so far, so I'm going to explain how to do it real quick. First order of business, you want full flap deployment on takeoff, and that all happens in the leading edge. And this is probably most similar to the last monowing ornithopter, with the notable exception of the fact that the wings stay mostly stalled until it actually enters a en route climb stage. And it helps to reduce amplitude a little bit during takeoff. You don't technically have to, but if you don't, you're going to have to get a little bit lucky. Or be very, very good. And avoiding ground strikes, not easy. Rotation speed happens right around 60 knots. I'm going to push the amplitude all the way back in now that I am out of ground clearance danger. And best climb at that, best climb while you're in this takeoff, in this takeoff regime is about 72 knots. You hold that up till, I usually go to about 1,000 feet, and it does climb pretty nicely in this configuration, but like I was saying, the wings are still, they're about half stalled. It's very shaky, and it's not very efficient, and it's very slow. So once you get to the base altitude that you want, you nose forward, get the speed up to about 80, drop the flaps to 75, 90, drop them to 50, start to lower your amplitude down to about 50. And then everything turns glassy all of a sudden, and that is because your wings are unstalled. Once that happens, you can drop the flaps again to 25, and you are in a cruise flight. Or if you wish, you can nose up and enter an en route climb at about 800 feet per minute and about 110 knots. 105 to 110 is pretty good en route climb depending on temperature. The shake is pretty slight. If you're in a level cruise, you can get the amplitude down to about low 40s, and you get a nice smooth ride. I am still running with 25% flap. That is a pretty solid cruise setting. You really don't need to fly it with any less, but if you want a high speed, or a slightly higher speed straight and level cruise, or you want to get away with slightly less amplitude, you can clear that. You can clear that flap to 0, but I don't really recommend it for climbs. But it's fine. It's fine for straight and level cruise maneuvering. One significant thing, though, this is a very high aspect. Oh, it's a moderately high aspect ratio wing, and one of the things I've said before that I think ornithopters would be good for is motor gliders. Well, this is one. If I bring up the flight here so we can get our lift drag figures, if you pop the flaps back to 25%, which is where it likes to be when the wings are stationary, and stop flapping, best glide speed happens right around 90 knots. And it's difficult to see because the wings jitter a little bit and create a lot of noise in the lift drag ratio, but it averages out to a lift drag of roughly 40. So this does in fact have a nice enough ratio to soar with. Just a point of interest. But in order to do this, you want those leading edges at 25%. If you clear them to 0, the lift drag plummets to about 15, which is not really good enough to soar with. And that's pretty much the whole thing. If you care about the airspeed indicator references, I do have them labeled, but 60 is your rotation speed, and 80 here is where you're transitioning out of stalled state and you want 50% amplitude. That stuff is written on there. The post-it notes give you references for V speed. That is how you fly this thing. It is not quite as simple as the other fixed wing or the other mono wing that is unstalled pretty much immediately, but it performs really nicely and has basically no shake, so I am relatively happy with that compromise. Oh, other point of interest. Lights are on L. I have them all together because there's no landing light or anything. There's not really any reason why I figure you would need one and not the other, and I'm lazy, so that's what you get. You're welcome to rebind them if you feel like it. I think that's just about everything important.